We are starting the last session of the conference.
I titled my presentation as The Meaning of a Mandate, an analysis of Modi Manifesto from an SDG framework. When we look at a manifesto, when we look at a political mandate, and that too a very significant mandate, there are different ways to analyze it. For yesterday we saw that, today we saw, mostly from a political, sociological, psychosocial, there are different framework is used to understand the election victory. But I just want to focus only on the manifesto. The manifesto, I call it as Modi manifesto, not even BJP manifesto. So that's the first thing, let me make it very clear. And my presentation is about a brief introduction about the entire issue of manifesto and how to analyze the manifesto. And I specifically look at BJP manifesto, what are the content of the manifesto. Then I'll present briefly on SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, targets and indicators. And I try to compare between the SDG mandate and the BJP manifesto and certain concluding remarks. So this is the structure of my presentation. When we talk about opportunities of governance in 2019 mandate, and whether the BJP government, the Modi government, whether they'll stick to their manifesto, we don't know. But as I think probably for an analysis point of view, we should begin with, okay, we should give the benefit of doubt that at least there will be the direction of the programs will derive from the manifesto. Or manifesto could be used as a tool to understand which direction things may go. If you look at the previous government, the manifesto was generally a framework, general indication, not necessarily following one by one. And also, what are the ways in which we monitor the performance of the government? And my assumption is that look at the manifesto again, and also looking at manifesto from various framework, and probably looking at Sustainable Development Goal is one of the beneficial tool to understand it. I'll come to that why it's important. And the BJP manifesto is about, there are 15 core areas and 75 programs. Why 75? 2022 India is going to be the 100th year of our independence anniversary. So that is why.
No, 2022 75th.
Sorry, 75th anniversary. So they put 75.
47.
So they put 75 target programs as the key programs of manifesto. Within that, it is arranged in 15 areas. One is about the nation first, agriculture and farmer welfare, doubling the farmers' income. India as the world's third largest economy, infrastructure foundation for a new India, healthy India, determined India, good governance, education for all, women empowerment, inclusive development, cultural heritage, and foreign policy. These are the areas in which the 75 programs are arranged. And some programs get emphasis, some get lesser emphasis. So what I'll do is I'll go through some of it, I'll highlight it, and also I'll pick up the SDGs, I'll explain it, and some of the SDGs I try to compare it, because comparing these two, it will take probably I need about an hour or so. So when you talk about nation first, these are the programs suggested. Zero tolerance approach towards terrorism, national security, welfare of the soldiers, combating infiltration, coastal safety, implementing citizenship amendment bill, combating left-wing extremism, Jammu and Kashmir Article 370. Next one, please. So this is the first one, the nation first. These are the programs he proposed. Second, I just looked at only the health part of it, because I thought I look at health as an important aspect of the Modi's manifesto, and also the second part of the previous previous government. Health was prominently brought up into the national discourse. Health was not in the national discourse as the first part of the government. And also I just want to know that how far health is coming up in the national development, because in my view, the important infrastructure of any country is a healthy population. So when we talk about infrastructure, we need to revise our definition of infrastructure. Unless we start understanding health as a major infrastructure of a society, we may not be able to take it more forward. Next one, please. Sorry, I just wanted to highlight this one. Health for all, making healthcare accessible, strengthening health infrastructure, immunization and nutrition, elimination of tuberculosis. Only one disease specific comment was made in the entire manifesto. Next one, please. And education for all, only two, primary and secondary education, skill development. That's very interesting part of it. Primary and secondary education, no tertiary education, no technical education, no adult education, none of them are mentioned. These are the two ones. I'll come to again that one. Then inclusive development is another a major aspect of this manifesto. There are several programs are listed. Ensuring justice for all, strengthening Sabka Vikas, ensuring welfare for poor, responsive to the needs of aspirational middle class, commitment to geographical equity, development with dignity for the minorities, caring for the elderly, enabling Divyangas, political resolution on the matter of Gurkha land in fact, ensuring the welfare of the labor force, pension scheme for all the small shopkeepers, ensuring welfare of artisans, protecting our children, empowering transgender population. Next one, please. Now let me briefly introduce a sustainable development goal. We are talking about 17 goals. These are no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, good governance, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industrial innovation and infrastructure, equality, sustainable agriculture. Sorry, 12th one I can see that. Okay, the 30. Responsible consumption, responsible consumption. 13th about climate action. 14 life below water. 15 is about life on land. 16 is about peace and institution building. 17 is about partnership. And now why it's important, next one please. I'm not getting into the details, so next slide please. So before that. So when you look at, there are 17 goals, 169 targets, 230 indicators. So this is the magnitude. Now when we look at SDGs, this is a global covenant, a global agreement signed by 192 countries. And Prime Minister Modi himself was in 2015 at the General Assembly. And I had the privilege to listen to him at the General Assembly, and I spoke in response to this. So I was monitoring this for quite a long time. So India initially made huge commitment towards SDG, and many of us worked behind the scene. At some point in time, we thought Prime Minister Modi will be making SDG 3 as the national priority, and we'll take a global leadership in SDG. So that's a discussion. India may take a leadership on one of the SDG and create an SDG fund for the global development. That was the plan, but somehow the last minute didn't come through. Maybe that's impact of how the international understanding and perception of the Indian government, India's positioning in the international realm changed slightly, a little bit. So probably they have scaled down the international perception building to slightly downgraded. Probably that's one reason. Next slide, please. The number one is about no poverty. If you look at the manifesto, I did a word search. The poverty reduction welfare programs are mentioned, not necessarily poverty reduction per se is mentioned. Welfare program to reduce poverty, but never they mention poverty will be completely eradicated, or complete poverty eradication program will be one of the manifesto. Next one, please. And also I just wanted to highlight few of the targets on that. By 2030, eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, currently measured as people living with less than $1.25 per day. There is no promise in the manifesto that poverty will be completely eradicated by 2030. So that way, don't expect a dramatic poverty reduction program from the, if you go by the manifesto, we can't expect a dramatic poverty reduction program in the coming years. This has got very significant implication in the political understanding. We are talking about poverty, 30 to 40% of the people below $1.25 as a criteria. But absolute poverty, there is a lot of discussion take place. But poverty reduction, significant level of poverty reduction may not be, we may not be expect, we don't have to expect from the current government. And the next one is, sorry, yeah. And the zero hunger. The next slide, please. By 2030, end hunger and ensure access to, by all people, in particular, the poor and people in vulnerable sections, including infant, to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food for year round. When we look at the nutritional status of the country, again, about 40% of the children are undernourished. So we are not seeing any clear program towards that direction. There are, within the 75 program, there are children, our children as a priority is mentioned, but details are missing from there. But how the details may come up, It maybe depends on the political organization, political pressure, and also from the other international community's political pressure. But we don't know whether that pressure will work on these areas, because this also, the hunger reduction is not necessarily clearly manifested again. Next one, please. Next slide, please. Good health and well-being. I just wanted to focus slightly more than on this area. Next one, next slide, please. By 2030, reduce the global maternal mortality ratio to less than 70 per 100,000 live births. This is one of the significant challenges for India: maternal mortality reduction, infant mortality reduction, and neonatal mortality reduction. And my assumption is that unless you name it, unless you specifically propose it, neonatal mortality reduction and infant mortality reduction may not come to the 70. In some states it is 7, at the same time some states is 360. Within the states there are variation is so huge. So unless there is a specific program which is named infant mortality reduction, neonatal mortality reduction, and also child mortality reduction, probably these targets may not be achieved in the near future. Next one, please. And the strengthening the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. This is an important goal agreed by international community, that we should look at the issue of substance abuse, including alcohol abuse. In states where the alcohol is freely available, there is no alcohol abuse support programs. We have alcohol is freely available. At the same time, alcohol-related abuse, alcohol-related deaths is phenomenally going up. At the same time, the programs are not in place. I have to reduce my presentation. I'm just running through. Next one, please. Next one. Next, please. Quality education, I just want to mention. Ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education, but the manifesto says only 2. Education for all, and just very basic reference about education. But if you want to achieve the quality education for all, it requires extreme level of reform, extreme level of access to education program, and also a targeted program for inclusive education program. Next one, please. Next, please. Next. The clear water and sanitation. There's a lot of discussion about sanitation, but the water and sanitation is mostly focusing only on one river, but not necessarily a comprehensive clean drinking water program. So the challenge is that maybe we have to clean up Ganga water, but there is an issue of clean drinking water, particularly in the context of drought. The drought across the country, drinking water will be one of the major source of conflict. So we don't have a clear program to address the drinking water, as well as to monitor water-related conflict between the state and within the state and within the communities. Next one, please. Affordable and clean energy. There is no clear mention about promoting renewable energy. So probably an energy policy may be one of the major drawbacks of the entire manifesto. We can expect that it may come through, but I would consider as one of the major drawbacks of the policy. Next one, please. Decent work and economic growth. And this year, in fact, yesterday, International Labour Organization's 100th year, a decent work agreement is sanctioned. But that calls for a decent, extreme labour reform. And probably this is the one we can expect. But there is no indication that there is a massive labour reform may come through from the manifesto. Next one, please. Next. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Making in India, but if there is a footnote on Make in India and promoting innovation, probably that would have been a much more strong manifesto. Next one, please. Responsive consumption and production. And probably, if you look at the underlying principles of this manifesto, it goes against this. Uncontrolled production, uncontrolled consumption is one. Climate action, in fact, there is a huge silence in the area of climate action. In fact, all our mining sector is immediately opened up. That's one of the specific program is mentioned. Mining will be open for private sector supposed to be with a reduced monitoring mechanism and regulatory mechanism. Next one, please. Life below water. Actually, there is no program for cleaning our sea water and reducing pollution on the marine coastal pollution. So that, again, I would say that this will remain as one of the glaring drawbacks of the manifesto. Next one. 15. Life on land. There are some discussions here and there in the area of inclusive development. There are some mention about it. Next one. Goal number 16 about peace, justice, and strong institutions. There is a mention about legal reform, but at the same time, there is no discussion about alternative forms of problem solving, alternative forms of reducing violence, and also monitoring the issue of violence. Next one, please. See, 17 is about partnership. Here comes the issue of foreign policy. But the foreign policy, number one, we are moving away from India had a non-partisan foreign policy leadership in the global level, and also India is aspiring for a permanent seat at the Security Council, but I have serious doubt about it, because if you want to become serious as a member of Security Council, you should begin acting like a Security Council member. Do you have a position on any of the global issues? Are you willing to put money on issues internationally? And also India got an extensively strong overseas development assistance program, but that is not flagged anywhere in what we are going to do with. Are we going to increase our overseas development assistance? India is a major donor international development assistance in particularly African countries and Asian countries. But that how we are going to leverage for the issue of India's position in international level, that need to be looked at carefully. And also India was a leader of the developing countries. In that capacity, I would say India is a member of probably 30, 40 international committees. If you look at the performance of that committees, I would suggest that maybe India should take a close look at India's performance in various international commissions and international committees. Internationally, India is not yet behaving like a member of a Security Council member. So unless you start behaving, unless you start believing in it, unless you start putting money into it, unless you start speaking about it, it's very likely that India could be a member of Security Council. And I just want to conclude that India is already giving up some of the institutions we built up extensively, particularly the issue of SARC, South Asian Regional Cooperation, that is actually removed from the manifesto. At the alternative, they are supporting and building a BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal coalition that is based in Bangladesh. At the cost of SARC, there's only one reason to corner Pakistan. Politically, whether it's good or not, but we have institutions which we should use for leveraging our position internationally. So it is for building it, strategically utilizing it, not sidelining it. So conclusively, the manifesto gives a very good indication about what we can expect, and some of the things, and also one of the major drawbacks is that what is the financial allocation for this one? Unless there is money allocated, there is no point in. See, for example, health, we are investing about 1.2% of the national budget. The international essence is that it has to go up to 14% to see some significant impact. And thank you for this opportunity. I had to cut down this dramatically.